Hey everyone, it's Hydropump here. Today I got a hat format deck profile of Infernity to show you guys. This is going to be like a rehash of what I showed on my old channel. It was mostly my gaming channel a couple years ago. But I figured I'd just do an update for my channel, my current channel, just to show you guys. And since hat format's been more popular as of late, just to show you guys what I got. I used to play this deck back in the day during hat format, so it was kind of my go-to deck, and I think I did pretty well with it. Unfortunately, I did not get to go to the nationals, but I was one of the top-ranked duelists on Dueling Network, not Dueling Book, Dueling Network. So yeah, I was jump right into the deck profile. It's gonna be pretty similar to that video I showed a couple years ago. If you want more details, it's probably gonna be better watch that one too after this one, but because I went a lot more in depth there. But anyways, yeah, 3 Archfiend, 3 Necromancer. Again, I know this isn't really too popular. Most people play 2. I like the third one just to help with the grind, and you can really stall with the third one and just grind your opponent out. If you don't have the third one, it becomes a lot harder to grind games out. Again, you can potentially brick on like opening 2 of them if you don't have something like Dark Gruffer to get you out of it. But yeah, I still always like 3 and never really felt comfortable with 2. And we got 3 Stallion Street Patrol. I'm pretty sure this became standard at some point, but probably when Soul Charge came out. But I always kind of like the 3 just because it helps you get out of those big heavy monster hands. If you don't have the third one, it's kind of hard to get out of those hands sometimes. And then we got the 2 Dark Gruffer. I like 2. You could potentially go for a 3 just because of Street Patrol, but then you run into some problems against like Bottomless Trap Hole going second and whatnot. So yeah, Gruffer's great, but it comes kind of like a liability when you have to go second against Bottomless. So and we also play 2 Armageddon Knight. I played the 2 and 2. I bumped these up when Soul Charge released, just because you can go like Gruffer, ditch Gruffer, or Gruffer, ditch Armageddon Knight and whatnot, or even like Armageddon Knight to send Gruffer to like empty your hand more if you have Soul Charge. So yeah, I always like the 2 and 2 when you play the Archie and Eris. I saw people try to cut this back in the day, but I think it's just too necessary because you need a way to get to Archfiend. If you don't have a reborn card like Launcher or Soul Charge, you need a way to get to Archfiend if you have Street Patrol in the grave. So yeah, that's what you kind of need Eris for. It is pretty much a brick. You kind of just have to like set it and hope your opponent runs over it, or just but it's really hard to make a immediate play when you open this card. So that's like the one thing that's bad about it. My last monster is 10 Goldfish. Pretty good. That's because you can special summon your Archfiend. I don't play the other generic like level 4 monsters like Photon Thrasher or Dinotherium. Those monsters are, they're great just because your opponent can't chain Max C to them. But like, if your opponent has Max C, you're probably not gonna be making a big play anyways. So like, usually it's okay to like, stop on something like this. You get a Surge off Archfiend and whatnot. It's kind of like a bait for Max C, I guess. When you just make it so they won't get much value out of it. And those the other level 4 monsters can be a little awkward sometimes. Like Dinotherium can later on in the game could be kind of hurt you because your opponent gets to summon a monster too. And then Photon Thrasher, if you draw at the wrong time, you could pretty much lose you the game because you can't like summon it and whatnot. So I kind of like 10 Goldfish the most. And then also I'm not playing Summoner Monk. Might be a shocker because it's so good in this deck, but there's times where Summoner Monk's really risky going second. So if you don't have something like, if you're playing into 4 or 5 back rogue with Summoner Monk, it's really risky. Risk like Breakthrough Skill, Phoenix Chain. So you always need something like Lance, which I didn't find was very reliable out. So you pretty much just lose the game if your Summoner Monk gets stopped on the first turn, and sometimes that's like the only play you can really do. So I just opted not to go with that, because going second in this format is really harsh, because again, your opponent could have set all their back row with no fear really. So I felt like Summoner Monk was a little too high variance to play. Anyways, that's all the monsters. Let's put them up here. Obviously, we play 3 Soul Charge. You know, this is like the best Soul Charge deck in my opinion. Now, there's other decks that have stronger Soul Charges, like Sylvans and whatnot. But I find with Infernity, you get the resolve like Soul Charge the easiest. Like all you need is just to dump 1 monster in the grave, like with Armageddon Knight, Dark Gruffer, and then like you Soul Charge like 1 or 2 back, and you're still popping off. Whereas other decks, like you might Soul Charge like a couple, but it's not really getting you there. And again, this deck you can just get monsters in the grave so easily. So, my opinion, best Soul Charge deck, or most consistent one. 3 Upstart Goblin. You know, we don't really play Summoner Monk, so can't really say that's the reason I play Upstart Goblin for more spells, but it's just like 3 less filler cards you need to play, and then you just get to see the rest of your deck. I see people say, you know, this is kind of bad in this format just because it fuels your opponent's Soul Charge, but with this deck it doesn't really matter, because like if you make a field you kind of kill them. I kind of understand if you're playing this in more of like a grindy deck, but yeah, Upstart's still pretty good, I feel. And we play 2 Instant Fusion. This card's really good, pretty versatile. And you can either, you know, play it as you can kind of like just like trick your opponent sometimes with this, like as an extender. Like you make it seem like you set all your spells and traps and you go for a play, and then your opponent's like, well, this is all they got. You stop them, and then you can Instant Fusion into as an extender, rather than like if you're always on monsters, you have to, you know, kind of make it obvious. This is like a small thing, but yeah, Instant Fusion is pretty good. I see some people play 3, but I feel like, you know, you can only activate once per turn, so you don't want to get stuck with too many. And then for the 1-0 spells, we play obviously the Launcher, the Foolish Burial, the Rhoda, and Archangel Labyrinth. Launcher doesn't need explaining. You know, pretty much any of these. Archangel Labyrinth is still pretty good. Obviously, doesn't do a whole lot by itself, but kind of makes your Archfiends huge. So in like a simplified game state, this card can be really good, just because you can get like a Fiend and an Archfiend, and it just like starts snowballing for you. And again, just makes your Archfiends pretty huge. So Platinum's just pretty nice. You can search it off Eris, so which can continue your combos. For the traps, we play Infernity Barrier, and we play 3 Break. Now technically, most of the combos you only search 2 Break and a Barrier. You don't really ever get to the 3rd one usually, but if you open one, you just want to be able to search the other, or the 3rd one kind of helps in the grind as well. So yeah, sometimes like when I was going second in the past, during this format, I would side out one just because you technically don't need it. Sometimes it actually was helpful in a like grind situation, but technically don't need the 3rd one, but everyone pretty much plays 3. So yeah, those are your searchable traps. And then something I don't see a lot of people playing right now, online scene anyways, is Wiretap. I always felt like this card was really good. Like the most popular decks were Geargia and Hat, and this card is pretty good against both of them, because it kind of just lets you play through back row consistently. You know, summon Exciton Knight, you Wiretap their Interruption for Exciton Knight, then kind of nuke their field. So this card was really good. Or you don't have to go through Exciton Knight, you just like kind of like bait through your opponent's back row, and then you have this to stop the important ones as well. So I always like this card. I see build like a current Infernity builds. Let's go with like the Sahabi build that did really good at Nationals and Worlds, where this kind of just like blow through the back row. I just kind of prefer to grind to the back row if possible. Obviously this card isn't as good if the format's more diverse, when there's like not as much hat and gear get, but I feel like it's one of the most popular decks, and kind of still stays true on the online scene for the most part. So I still like this card a lot. And we got 3 Phoenix Chain. Again, another card that's not really played in Infernity, and I don't really see it much play in much hat format online right now, but I liked it back in the day. Just because, like, in a simplified game state, you can kind of just like summon an Armageddon Knight and then stop their opponent's monster from beating over. You can just do another normal summon, and then you get a rank 4 play, and then you have Wiretap to back you up, and you kind of just get things rolling. It's a slow roll, but kind of gets things going for you. One thing about this is it kind of does clog your back row sometimes, so you have to be careful with that. Maybe if the format's more diverse, I would consider something like Breakthrough Skill. Well, I think Breakthrough Skill is really good anyways, but maybe Breakthrough Skill would be a good addition to this deck, just because you can stop the artifacts, Dweller, several other things. But I like Phoenix Chain. Something cool is if your opponent happens to be brings in Flying Sea against you, you can Phoenix Chain the Flying Sea when it's on your field. Because Phoenix Chain just works on any monster. Kind of niche, but just something kind of small. So yeah, solid card all around, and that's why I liked it. And just generic traps that, again, most people don't play in Infernity is Compulsory, Bottomless, and Warning. These cards were just kind of good going second, believe it or not. Just because usually like Gear, they take a turn to set up their Gear Gigant, so like if you like go second, you kind of like have a way to out the Gear Gigant cleanly, and so kind of just you trade 1 for 1 with their gear in a sense. Obviously Compulse, they can still get the small guy, but kind of narrow. And then Bottomless is actually really good against like Dragon Rulers and stuff. Like against like Mermel, you can just like Bottomless their title, and then they don't have title the rest of the game, and so on. So yep, that was the traps. Again, a lot heavier trap lineup than older builds. Most other builds that just kind of like jam spell cards, go for Exciton Turbo. And for the extra deck, I played 3 of the Volvo Chain. Now, most builds obviously play 2. I played 3 back in the day. I guess it's kind of just went into grinding through opponent's back row, because obviously, like, you summon the first one. If you have enough gas to play through their traps, like, you just let this one die, and then you still have 2 more to go through. Whereas if you let 1 die, you only have 1 left, and then so I just kind of like having 3 just as like unlimited resource kind of thing. There's like 1 combo where you do need 3, but it's pretty narrow. But there's a couple of cards I might want to fit in the extra deck going forward if I were to play going forward, so I'll maybe cut the 3rd one. But yeah, 3 Volvo Chain, and we got 2 Diamond Direwolf. This is like your all-around utility. You need 1 for combo to pop your own stuff, and then second one's is good to have, but sometimes you even need 2 to get through your opponent's cards, and it's kind of like a free monster. So yeah, Diamond Dire at 2 is mandatory. Some utility, XYZs, you got Key Beetle, Dweller, Rhapsody. Key Beetle can just like lock your Necromancer down, or your Barrier, or just like Floodgates, so the card's really good. This Dweller, I can see myself bumping this up to 2, considering how popular Mermel is in current Hab format online. It's super popular. It wasn't as popular back in the day, but if you play 2 of this, it just makes the Mermel matchup like a cakewalk, because you can just spit 1 out your first turn, and they may both kill it or something, or bait it out, but then you make a second one, it's pretty much GG's. So maybe a second one be good going forward. We play Rhapsody, really good. It's like double DD Crow, is a fiend for Labyrinth. You can banish so if you have Archfiend this, you can banish this for another Archfiend, which is really good. So this is a really good utility monster. And the attack boost on XYZ monster is relevant if you're trying out something big like a Leo and whatnot. So yeah, Rhapsody's pretty strong. Cowboy for game. I remember seeing people trying to cut this back in the day, but I think the Cowboy for games is still really good. Obviously, we play one Exciton Knight. Again, most people play two because they play like the Sahabi build. I could see maybe upping this to two, but I kind of like, again, I made my build to grind through back row more so than just blow through them with the Exciton Knight. So that's kind of what I was aiming for, so I didn't really feel the need for a second one. But I can maybe see merit for it. There's just like a couple other cards I'd rather fit in here, like a second Dweller and something else here in a little bit. 101, this good generic card. And we play 2 Leviair. Always need one. You can maybe consider cutting the second Leviair, but I do play 3 Necromancer, so it's a lot more realistic for me to go into 2 Leviair than the builds that play only 1 Leviair or 2 Necromancer. There's a lot more grind game in this build than the other one, so 2 Leviair is there for that. But again, I can maybe see cutting 1 being an option. But there's times where you do go into the second one, again, mostly in a grind game situation. And then for Institution targets, we play the Wizard. It's kind of funny because people always complain about this card online. Just because it's really expensive, they have to play something like Dark Fire Dragon or whatnot. And then Fusionist, just level 3 for, again, Leviair plays. Once I'd consider playing, maybe cut the Leviair for a second Dweller, and something I always wanted to fit was Black Ship of Corn, just because it's really good against, like, well, it has a burn effects for 1,000, and then it's really good against Boojins. This deck can kind of struggle against Boojins if they get going, so you can kind of just, if they have Hair Engraved, you can make Black Ship and kill it, the Yamato, and so that was like a clean out for it. So that's something I would maybe consider, cutting like these two for those, the Dweller and the Black Ship of Corn, but have to go through further testing for that. And for a sideboard, real quick, we have Dark Hole, Mind Control. These are really good cards going second. Something I kind of see is, I don't know. I think people kind of underestimate like how bad going second is in this format, so kind of just want as many cards to help win going second as possible. Dark Hole is just really good for, you know, clearing Gear Armor turn 1 if you want to, and then it's really good against the decks that make big boards like Mermel. They'll try to spit out a Soul Charge or something against you, like with the Biscayos, and you just, you know, Dark Hole, get it out of there. So it's decent. And then Mind Control, again, take a Gear Armor or like a hand or something against Hat and just exceed with it, so pretty good there. So I did the 3 MST. I see a lot of decks main deck this card, and I don't think this card is very good in this format. Again, against Gear and Hat, you don't really want to be playing into like the back row with MSTs. Like, blind MST is just not what you want to do in this format. You'll hit like a Gear or like a artifact card, and you're just kind of down bad. Chainable cards, like, just not very good against it. So yeah, I think this card's pretty mediocre in this format. It's obviously good against like the more rogue kind of strategies that aren't like Gear and Hat. So that's kind of what it's in here for. So yeah, I just prefer the side MSTs, and I think more decks should. We got the 3 traps done. This might be a little overkill against the trap decks like Gear and Hat, but I think I sided 3 back in the day, so I'll have to see if this is worth going for. Again, I do have the wiretaps in the main also, but these kind of are really good as well. Just play through back row. Played 2 Needle Sealing. This was this is probably replaceable in the side, but this was more so for against, I guess, like more copies of Dark Hole against his like big Soul Charge decks, and then against the Mirror as well has potential. And we had 2 light imprisoning mirrors. This could probably be like DNA surgeries as well. Kind of just depends what you want to hedge for. It's like if you want to hedge for like light sworns and Bujins, or with DNA surgery you can hedge for Bujin and spellbook. So that's kind of like the main thing. Maybe DNA surgery is better, but I remember using light mirror just because people thought light sworn was really good back then, but it's fallen off a little bit. And we cited 3 emptiness as the last card, just like a generic floodgate. Really good against something like Mermel, because you can just like go key beetle this, or Dragon Rulers go key beetle this, and then they probably just lose. So like people that they max your play, and then you kind of stop on key beetle. They draw 1 card, and then you have emptiness, and they're probably sitting there with a bunch of hand traps in their hand to stop your deck. So, but again, that is the deck profile. I just wanted to rehash that real quick for this my channel, and since hat format is more popular than it was back in the day. So leave a like if you enjoyed the deck profile, and just leave your thoughts down below, like if you prefer like a build like this or the typical build you see most Infernity decks be like, with like the Summoner Monks, the Lances, the MSTs, and all that stuff to make Ixaton Knight. Anyways, thanks for watching, everyone. I'll catch you all in the next one.